וכידוע בעניין מם וסמך, the mem stuma, she begins makif, because it surrounds from the outside a whole inner area. Avohim merubas, it's square. Sheyesh lo yashvus, a certain settling or sittingness in the makif. V'hainu b'chinas makif sheyesh lo eiz shaychus al chaponim elo elamas. It's a makif which, since it has this ability to at least appropriate itself somewhat, even in the form of a square, to the space in the middle, then that's a sign that it has some sort of a shaykhus and connection with the space in the middle, even though it's makif, we call our arbit stodium. But those arbit stodium have a certain shape and straightness, which indicates the idea of connection with detailed shashvas. That means that in the Shoresh, even though that's a makif, in the Shoresh Horishain of that oil, which is indicated by the mem stuma, it's a sign that it comes from inyonim which they are able to appropriate themselves to the giluyim of elamas v'ishtalshalas. Even though they're makifim lahem, it's a sign that in their shoresh harishon they do have eizeshu shaychus to the prote ha'inyonim of gilui v'derech elamas v'ishtalshalas. So therefore that's a sign that their shoresh harishon is what we call a giluyim. And in those aspects of the Eibusha which he revealed himself in the form of a oyer v'ha ha'ora. If it's a oyer and it's a gilui, then it's only a ha'ora mimenu yizbara. Albeit the shoresh harishon being in very high madregas, the ainu, even in the Ersh Koydem HaTzimtzum, because since after all it's a makif, then it's even prior to the tzimtzum. However, it's in those inyonim what they already bequinas gilui for the sake of chaponim of the later giluim in elamas. Aval samach hu ogu she'ein lo yishashvus klal v'hainu b'chinas machiv de'erechoizer shehu b'chinas helem or atzmi she'einu shaychus klal elo elamas. In other words, that those are inyonim which are shaychus only within the atzmi himself. And like the atzmi is by definition moved down the elamas, then the makif of choizer, which is oil of a kolu b'teich atzmus, then that represents a gilu, which is kaviochol, the same as atzmusay. Just like atzmusay is moved out, the nelam from the whole union of elamas completely and utterly in all forms. Well, that's the usage of the two words cloud or cloud. So is this union of the makif to erechoizer. Now we have to say that so-called the makif of erechoizer is a form of oil. It is a form of some form of gilur. Mimenu yizbara. Because we're not, you can't call a makif to erechoizer the etzem, the pshitas of the atzmus manach. Pshitas of the atzmus is completely moved out from any description of any kind, or any toya, or any form of makif, or yosha, or v'chule, no shayach shum terminology in the union of the atzmus. Now, the fact that we call it the helem ha'atzmi she'einu shaychus klal, that means giluyim, which are kalulim mamish b'toich atzmusay, in a way that they have what we might call the primordiality of the atzmi, even though they're not mamish necessarily the atzmi. That's what we find when we talk about, for example, yechoilas. We say the yechoilas of the atzmas, the ability that he could produce kafra v'kaf. So that's purely mitad the etem. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any gilui mamish of al chaponim. The very fact that you say that's the yechoilas of the atzmas, that means that you're in some way describing certain inyonim in the Atzmus, which means a certain yerida from a pshitas ha'atzmi into a certain tziyur kol shehi. Just that tziyur is not in the giluim, it's mitzad the Atzmus itself. And therefore it's called a oyer ha'kolol b'atzmus imamish. And like the Mukubarim say, the inyan from Shmoi kadmoin ki kadmusay. There are certain madrigas in Shmoi, actually nivro ha'olam hoyahu Shmoi bilvad. There was only the Eibishter Shmoi, and sometimes we talk about that Shmoi as the oyeros haklulim mamish bi'atzmusay, but they have the same primordiality as the atzmus. In other words, they're not really giluim mimeno, but on the other hand, they're not mamish pshitas atzmus. And therefore they can be called Shmoi. Well, that's the inyan from the Makif to Choyze. The Ein Mashin is boil yield Dibba Mashal Hashamayim Musaprim with Dibba Mashal Nosoi, the inyan Makif HaKorev and Makif HaRochev. Well, that's the two madrigas, and the two inyanim of the Makif HaKorev. But the Makif HaKorev means a oyer Makif, which has nonetheless got a certain kirub to the Makablim, like we spoke about the whole inyan of the Tiferes Ta'eman Nasa Kesel Lazor, and Tiferes Tazor Nasa Kesel Lenuk, with the whole Arichas. We saw the different madrigas in Makifim, which are not Malubish in the clay Hapnimium, but nonetheless they're still even of Makif, despite somewhat kirub to the Makabrim. And then there's a Mitis in a Makif. Well, that's the union of the oyeros that are completely beyond any shaykhs to the spheres and the elamas, and that's the union of Makif HaRochei, but that's the Makif HaChoyze. But that's the Makif HaKorol B'atzmus that we just explained. But so, b'chinas Kesher Shem Tov Shoel Al Gabein, v'ayna b'chinas Malchus Davki. We saw that Madrega arouses itself Davki in Kesher Malchus, and it becomes Kesher Shem Tov and Oila Al Gabeihem, higher than the other Kusarian. What we went on to say that that's Davki through the Inyan Evan Moasu HaBainim, that there's a simple Evan with the Bainim say, oh, that's just a simple little Evan, and they, Mitzad Atzman would have put it aside, or somehow or another, it becomes the Reish Pino, it becomes the top and the cornerstone of the whole wall. Well, because even though Malchus is the lowest of all madrigas, nonetheless Dav Kippur is miskaved the madriga Haki Elyoina of Kesel Ba'oyer Choyze, and that's the inyan of Even, Aleph, Ban. What Ban is the inyan of the Shem Avaya B'milui Hayan. What Hayan indicates in the Ram Shochar Amata, and Davki, its inyan is to be Mavara the inyan of the Yesh. And not only the inyan from Yesh, but even how the Yesh becomes Noiga, how it becomes a Klippa, and it's Malim on the Kavanah Amitiyas, but that's the inyan of Noiga, but Biyah, and that's the inyan of David, or that Shemban, that's got to do with David, because Inyoni was Davki Yerid Elamata, Techa Oilam, and Lil Chaim, Chemes Hashem, as well known. But the whole inyan from David, what he was a Ish Milchama, well, that's the inyan from Shem Bana Mavara Berudim, and he's the Rigla Raviyah, he's the fourth leg, or the fourth, how do you call it, foot, the fourth foot of the Kisei HaKovid, which has got the three ovis, and then the fourth one is David HaMelech. Well, he's Shelamata Migimel HaKavim, of Kesher Torah, Kesher Kahuna, and Kesher Malchus. But nonetheless, he also Davki L'Reish Pino. Davki, she goes back to the highest point and becomes the cornerstone of L'mayla Mikol Asfires Obchinas Kesher Aleihem. He becomes the emes of Kesher. That's the inyan from Kesher Shem Tov. Yesher Oila Al Gabeihem. And as we pointed out last night, that's Davki through the Shutvas of the Neshama. So we'll see about that almost beginning in the Ranki Shia. And as we go further, we'll see more in Ba'arichas, the connection of the Neshamas Yisrael and the way they serve Hashem, Oifen Avidosam, connected with this whole union of Malchus. Vayas David Shein. That's written of David when he came back from the war against Edom. He fought the descendants of Edom, of Esau, and he made a whole war against them, and he brought them into a state of slavery, the Gabi Yidden, and he put representatives over there in Edom to keep them quiet, to make sure that they were under his, as you might take, his control, or to use the expression, under his thumb. And we see that David HaMelech knew how to deal with the troublemakers who were around Eretz Yisrael. He knew the right way to deal with them and to keep them under control, which unfortunately is lahipuk, is my name. When he came back from Edom, Vayas David Shein, he made himself a name. So that's the pshat. Shame is the union from Malchus. Vayas, through the union from Asiya Bapoyo, as we see, through the Aveda, the Eved Koshu, that's the Asiya Bapoyo. But that's Yas David, and then we'll see that the union from the shame reaches a new madrega altogether by Yas David Shein. But the simple pshat from that is that he became famous by Yas David Shein. He literally made a name and made a majesty for Malchus Yisrael, because Malchi is Misovi. But that means that he caused in the union from Malchus, Kesher Shem Teiv, an aliyah into which Madrega Hamiti is, Vayas David Shein. Of course, you're familiar with the famous pure in Tanya, the Geras HaKodesh, with the Alter Rebbe, in the chapter Hey of the Geras HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe is Marich, a big arichas, when they get to that pasuk, Vayas David Shein. But it's written in the Zohar Kodesh that he was Ovid, Bocher Reb Shimon, Oma, David Ovid Shmuel Kadisha, and he connected that document with the Maisa had stock, and then even for giving stock of Asiya Bapoyo, with the ganze Arichas HaInyonim over there in that famous Sigera. And here we're teaching it differently. The Yas David Shein, that he caused through the union from Yas, but that's the Avedis HaPshuta, or Avedis HaPirurim, as we'll see in a minute, the Kabbalah Seil Davke, and the Aveda here Lamata, but that's the union of the Birurim, how they are, down Lamata, Ba'ilum Espiyah, and then you cause the Aliyah, Kesher Shem Teiv, in the union from Malchus, that it goes up to become Rosh Pino, and that's a pshat by Yas David Shein. Vayas David. That's why it's written in the pasuk that he did it. But that happens precisely through the union of Sur Mira Bavedas Abirulim Davke. So we see that the Chosn's got a exclusive. He's been mamshik not only his own nitzots, but he's been mamshik another couple of nitzotzes to take part in the shiur before the war. And Baruch Hashem, they're also willing nitzotzes, because we saw yesterday, at the beginning of the Maimah and Barichas in the previous Maimah, that the ich is to be poil in the nitzotzes, that they should want, that should be the rotzen in the nitzot, therefore to be mispara with all arichas, or it appears that people coming here davki barotzen with b'cheshik almanaus. Yeah, I wouldn't say that he's barak. I mean, no doubt they've already been mispara, but I'll find him at least undergo a certain bureau in the union from the shur and Shabbat. Sehu union vayas David davki through the union from Asiya Bapoyo. And here the Rebbe says, Alidei Sur Mirah Ba'avedus HaBirurim Davke. Davke through turning away from the evil, Ba'avedus HaBirurim Davke. That's very interesting. Before he could have said Davke Alidei Asei Toiv, or he could have said both of them, Sur Mirah V'Asei Toiv. They're both written in the same pasuk. Turn away from the evil and do the good. And we see Davke chooses to say Alidei Sur Mirah Ba'avedus HaBirurim Davke. We'll soon see in a second. We'll learn another couple of lines, and we'll see that he brings down the Maimon and Pasha Nosoi, but over there he's Mavaya the Maila of Mitzvahs Lois Haseh. So he said, Dahare Agilu Mil Maila Lamata, Zel Masha Meir Miatzman. The Gilu Mil Maila Lamata, that's Kaviyocho, Me'iyah mi'atzmei. You know, even though chas v'sholom nothing is l'mayla mi'atzmei, nothing just happens, but they're mamela. Everything that the Eibishter gives is all given b'rotzein, or b'kavona, or b'tachlis hakavona, v'chule v'chule. What we mean to say is me'iyah mi'atzmei ki'ilu, it would be mi'atzmei. In other words, it's what you might call the expected thing. The way the Eibishter has made himself as if he are ma'or, he's come to the madriga of being setting himself as a shorish of oya. So the way you have a ma'or, the oya is me'er from the ma'or. There's what you might call expected inyonim ameya, even though of course they're me'er b'tachlis hakavon. But it's called me'er mi'atzmei. It kill happens on its own, as you might say, or to use the expression automatically, because u'kamoi ki chofet chesed hu. We say that the Eibishter does certain inyonim ki chofet chesed hu. That the Eibishter has a pneumistic gishmak and a pneumistic kavona and a pneumius rotzen in the union of giving. Chofet chesed hu. So the Rebbe said that just like a person who gives chesed and a person who is a baal chesed, and he has this tremendous tainu in doing chesed, then you don't have to prompt him, he just does it. And on the contrary, he gives without any cheshbonus and he doesn't ask for anything back. He just, he does everything, even from mamela or me'ela of mi'atzmei, because he's a ish chesed. The far chesed is a door which is me'er beli, how you might call Isarusa de la Tatas and believe Bakoshes and believe the ganze Arichas Oinya. The first, the Rebbe, or the Indian which comes mitzad Chofet Chesed Hu Lamaila, that's Kilumi Atzmi. It's like Ador Me'elov, even though Chalili can't say it's Mamish Me'elov. But it goes and it flows mitzad the Chayfetz Pnimi of the Eibishter to give. And it's well known that that's even one of the tamim of the whole Bria and the whole Indian of these scholars of all the Eidos, including the Eidos Aki al Yoinim, is all because the Eibishter is a Chofet Chesed, that's einer from the tamim, from the Bria. Kaviyohu, he wants to give, and that's the Pnimiyat, the Atzmius V'Teine from the Boida Eilam is to give, Chofet Chesed. Yes, so he said, Bepinas Hei Hachsodim Hoi al Yoinim de Tihiru Ilah. That's based on a quote from the Zohar Kodesh that these are the 5 most high chasodim of Tihiru Iloah. Now, Tihiru Iloah is an expression for the bright, high, bright light. Tihiru is light or shining. Iloah means high. So Tihiru Iloah is the Oyer Shelefnei Tzimtzum. It's called Tihiru Iloah. And then we have the expression Tihiru Tatoah. Well, Tihiru Tatoah is the last oil prior to the Tzimtzum, and the oil which is Me'ele Achar Tzimtzum. That's called Tihiru Tatoah. But Tihiru Iloah means the oil, how it is, Malas, Kolacholo, maybe even higher than that to a certain extent, prior to the Tzimtzum, and that's Mitzad the Inyam from Hei HaChasodim. Now the Hei HaChasodim are very high Inyam, what they indicate the Chofet Pnimi of the Eibishter Mitzad HaTmusli to give. That's called Hei. Hey Hachsodim, and also it's brought down over there that the Gevura is also Hey. The Hey HaGevura but they are numerous in the two, the fact that the Shem Havai has got 2 K's, but the Inyan from K is the Inyan from Ashpoah, V'chulu, it's a ganze, Arichas HaDvorim. Ukemoishin is bor, Yil Diva Amaschol Nosoi. Well, over there, the Rebbe points out Barichas, the difference within the Eibishter or the relationship of the Eibishter to mitzvahs aseh and mitzvahs lois aseh. There's a whole big mile about the mile of the mitzvahs lois aseh over the mitzvahs aseh. And he says that the mitzvahs aseh shorshom is in this in what he called here the in from Giluim, the Ein Seif Lamaila. What Be'ikah they got to do with Chesed, and therefore Be'ikah they're connected with the Heyat Chasodim of Tihiru Iloah. Therefore, when you do a mitzvah sasei, then your mamshich ha'oil, which was already prepared for that mitzvah. Ali day you would do that mitzvah, then this Indian is b'mela, as it were, nimshach, because it's already been somehow or another nimshach b'shor shoy, ready for that pu'ula ali day the adam a mitzvah saseh. And therefore we see that in a way a mitzvah saseh is easier than a mitzvah slay saseh. Probably worse. Because even though a mitzvah saseh implies tircha, in order to do a mitzvah saseh, you got to buy all the things that go into the mitzvah, and then you got to put them together. If it's tefillin or tzitzis or even arba mini, or you have the even for the esrog, the lulav aminov, but I don't say arichas, and then there's a certain tircha b'kiyuma mitzvah, b'inyonah. Auch upon a pa'ula mesuyemes mi ha'adam. Aber mitzvah sheni, there's a tremendous fulfillment. The mensch has a gishmak in doing the mitzvah, because the mensch likes to do something that he knows that he's being poyer all day, piyulase, that he's putting effort into a certain inyan, and that's being mo'ira, lamayla, certain inyanim, bring down kiluim from the Eibishter, hadikot, as they say in Yiddish, the expression is nitchachis terrain. It's difficult to talk about how great this is. Remember, he finds a tremendous deep satisfaction or fulfillment benafshe when he does the mitzvah saseh. Either the mitzvah slay saseh are not like that. The mitzvah slay saseh don't involve doing anything. On the contrary, they involve keeping away from a thing, not doing anything, and they involve the union of the breakage of the self. That there's a certain mashiach, an attraction, or how do you call it, drawing of the Adam, Indian Masuyam, and he has to be, how do you call it, Oymed al Nafshik, not to do it. If I remember this Shlila, and even the certain mitzvahs Loisaseh was brought down in Sfarim, it's even hard to imagine how we really Makayim those mitzvahs Loisaseh was maneno, because nobody would ever dream of doing it. It wouldn't be Oyla al Datoi. For example, you can always find a tiny keneged in the union from Avodah Zorah, okay, each of us there. But nowadays people will tell you, well, there's a lot of Avodah Zorah around, you understand? So it could be that there is a Ayet Tahara to the union from Avodah Zorah. Or upon him, adultery, Machazok Inyonim. The Rov, B'nai Odom, wouldn't become involved in a Zocha Inyon, wouldn't even be Oyla al Daiton. And yet, nonetheless, that's called a mitzvah slay saseh shebetoyer. So, are you considered as having been Makayim that mitzvah, because you never really came to any sort of a situation where you could have been over as a mitzvah? Lo'id kama mitzvahs ka'elu, or saying kind of machim laharik b'zeh. But also upon him, what it means is that the inyan of a mitzvah loy saseh is the shlila at the tainug order. And that's in zwei Sachen. First of all, it's the Shlila at a Tainug, Poshet Gashmi, or upon him Nafshi Bahamistic that he might have in the Etzin meaning, Kamoishazeh, for example, all sorts of in Yoni, what I got to do with Achila and Nochazok in Yoni, that a mensch is attracted to, but by doing them, he denies the Yitzrei Hora or Yitzrei Bahami, v'chulu. Then there's an Inyan of knowing that you've been mamshik certain inyonim and you've done certain inyonim alidei the mitzvah. Mitzvah slice to say you don't have that because you aren't really, on the contrary. So what the Rambam points out over there, that really in a very high madregi you are being megala certain inyonim. But there's a need you do a lot of eino murgash etzloi what he's being poiled. But misalyenim to the inu from the mitzvahs lois haseh. Therefore, Davkin, the mitzvahs lois haseh, is the bittul amiti of the nefesh abamis and of the odom b'klalusai. The ike biro in maise b'poyer the Davkin the mitzvahs lois haseh. That's the pillar. And therefore, the Rebbe said, yes, so anasa that is sur meira b'avedas apirunim. In other words, that the ike of the biro is that you warn yourself from the bad, that you're not going to have to do that klal, and you doiche it. You have to do it, the inyan atoy. For example, when a person eats, L'Shem Shemayim, then he's deicha the inyan from the taiva, chumlius, the gufnius that he has in the inyan, Masuyam, and but there Mamela he's maler inyan teiva from the Dvarim HaGashmi. Aber die Ike Bittel shall call Matthias Odom is stuck in the Mitzvahs Loisaseh, not the Mitzvahs Aseh, on the contrary. They had a satisfaction, and they're a tainug for the Odom. So we're not playing down the Mitzvahs Loisaseh, the Mitzvahs Aseh. Gesundheit, have as much tainug as you like in the Mitzvahs Aseh. What we're saying is that the inyan from the Asur Mirah in the Mitzvahs Loisaseh is a higher inyan. That's the sin that we're talking about here. Sof koso. That's the maki farochaik, or the maki for the chayzer. That the Odom awakes. Davki for not doing anything. He davki does the dover haki niflo in rufnis for pnimis ha'inyan. Even though it's not murgash, miroiv hamayla shaboy. Hamayla said the Rebbe does it the inyan of why he used the expression that Vayas David, that the inyan of David caused the inyan from Asiyah, but that made the Kesef Shem Tov, Oila Al Kapeyim, that was precisely Rusume, Rabbi Apirurim, and he said that the inyan from Mitzvah Saseh connected with the inyan from Chesed, well, that's Meya Miatzmei, and that's a Heich Sodim, Ubaveda, Zehu inyan, Eisach HaToyer, Vakiyam HaMitzvah. Kiyuma mitzvahs, meaning the mitzvahs asay. When you learn Torah, you have a tremendous kishmak, and you see all sorts of inyonim, which are mishkala to you, and you even have a satisfaction mitzad your understanding, v'chayitza v'chule v'chule. Shemitzad ha'ava v'ishkashras, she'ena v'pinas omu v'yagiyah. So the Rebbe said that you do that mitzad the ava, and the ishkashras that you have in Elikus, and that's not omuviyah, it's not toil and struggle. So you might say, well, running around after a lulav is toil and struggle, and enslaved one street to the other looking for better lulav and schlepping the pieces of wood for his sukkah and putting them up and draining around. And so you mean to say it's not omuviyah? So that's not omuviyah. That's tircha. And it's ishtadlus, but it's more a time for Gishmak. Who is the yid that he doesn't feel a simcha and a hisrim and mesanefesh after Yom Kippur when he starts building his sukkah? There ain't a field in them. A gewaldige milui, retzayna hapnimi, tanugi hapnimi, v'chule. Avamira, that's not omul v'yagiyah, that's ishtadlus. It's effort. But how do they call it? It's willingly done and tainuk full effort. Mashiach said that Almo v'yagiyah, that's another inyan we'll soon see in a second. He said the inyan from Eisa Katoira and Kiyum HaMitzvahs, Kiyum in Mitzvahs Aseh, is not a inyan from Almo v'yagiyah, v'upkin am shochem no ma'ila lamata, that's the inyan le'each chasodim, chofetz chesed hu, tzok. It's in those inyonim which are giluim from the Eibush. So they've already been, as it were, prepared l'mayla in the inyan of gilui. Avol yesh gilui b'chinas helem ho'atzmi. That there should be the gilui of the helem of the atzmas mamish, or those oiros are the klulim b'chinas yechoiles b'toicha etem, shezo b'chinas kesha shem tov kanal. So he said that's precisely through effort and struggle, dafka having to do with the physical world and separating off and causing an aliyah in the inyanim which are b'chinas golos b'teich the klippus neger v'chule in the world. But that's the inyan of, as we saw, V'zeu v'yas David, the inyan of having made David, what he's the inyan from Malchus, but he's the neshomas, how they come down through Malchus, al yidei aveda v'yagiyah. Yas is the inyan from Maisa. Maisa indicates aveda v'yagiyah v'sura mirah davke. Adidei Zeh, also, he made a shame, he made a name, B'bchinas Keser Shem Tov, that he caused the Gila of Malchus, Mumata L'mayla, Ba'er Chayzer, what is the thing of Keser of Malchus? Well, that's a very incomparably higher madrega than the oils which come down by the Derech Ur Yoshua. So we see here that we're connecting mitzvahs asay with the Gila of Ur Yoshua, and mitzvahs lois asay with the union from the Keser Shem Tov, but that's the union of Ur Chayzer Davke. So don't come to say that Keser Shem Tov is not just the union for doing mitzvahs, but the mensch palavoch yot dem a tainug and a geschmack. No, the union from Keser Shem Tov comes davke mitzat the omel v'yagia, where the mensch is davke shoylel atzmai, and he davke negates his own zich, his own self, and he looks for the tachlis hakavona shebechol dover, not what he has a geschmack poseh. And that's a union from a basic b'dvarim hagashmi and b'yivim shel birah. And therefore, davke in that union is the tachlis his barriers of the mensch and of the inyonim sheba'olam, and that's called sur mirah. That means that you've turned away from the way that Indian draws you down into the Indian from Dvarim Gashmi. That's connected with Omul V'Yagia, because the mensch has to literally deny his own self. He has to be mevatel, regish atzmai, even of Yagia. It's a struggle and an effort. Mashenkin in the union from mitzvah asay, the effort is a dover hamakubul. That's how they call it, dover sheyesh bo is tam, and that's what's mavur in Kaman Mekemus, and even in Tanya, it's nilmas al chaponim, that in the mitzvah asay we can also have a certain yediyah in the oiras that we're being mamshich, because they come into kelim, and kelim ashat asoga v'chule. You have a certain asoga and what you're being makayim, etc. Well, in the meaning for mitzvahs leisas, the ikka is the bittul of the adam, completely the gabi the inyan. That's why Yas David, the inyan from Malchus, makes a inyan from Keser Shem Tov, Keser Shem Tov. So you might ask the Shaila, in Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh, when he talks about this whole inyan, he brings down Be'ikah that this is Yas David Shem, Ovid David Shmo Kadisha was caused and is caused Nimshach Alidei Avedis HaTzedakah. So you might say tzedakah is an Aveda of mitzvah asay. It's one of the biggest mitzvahs asay. However, he points out over there that the union from tzedakah has got itself a maila of kol shari a mitzvah asay, that when you give tzedakah, you're giving away from your own ziyach, you're giving away your own chayas and what you could have lived on that. You could have had it for your own inyonim, and you give it away for the sake of a traitor person or a inyan. You had to go in kedusha v'ka'itza b'zeh. There's no bigger bittul of the ziyach via the inyan from tzedakah. And therefore, even though tzedakah is a mitzvah asay, the truth is, it's not like all the other mitzvahs asay, because all the other mitzvahs asay, as we said, a man jumps at them. He has a big gishmak, and putting out money for a sheina port tzitzis or a sheina port tefillin, he's prepared to do that. Oh, but to give money for tzedakah, that's already another story. And so then he points out the Alter Rebbe, you can give tzedakah, and it can be called Maisa tzedakah. That's the way it's done. And then there's a form of tzedakah which is called Avedas tzedakah. In that kufi you have to break yourself, you have to work in order to give. Well, that's like the mile of sur mirah in the mitzvah asay aki choshuv, but that's the union from tzedakah. Therefore, tzedakah is a mitzvah klolius which is coil in itself the miles of all the inyan, inside the mitzvah asay and inside the mitzvah of place asay, because that's the ikka bittul high etzem from the main. And he points out over there, the Alter Rebbe, with money you could have bought yourself all the inyan that you wanted, plus you could have had it for yourself, but that gufa is a tremendous tainug. When a man just holds his money, this gufa gives him a certain satisfaction. How can you do it? Well, Mefurasam, in human affair. Yeah, therefore, to give it away, this is the greatest ishkafia. That's the greatest breaking of the ziyach. Yeah, therefore, that's got all the milas of the mitzvahs lo isaseh. And so therefore, even though we connect here by Yas David Shein with the union from mitzvahs lo isaseh, and dort in Tanya that will be connected with the union of Stoker, ain't there stira, because if you look carefully, you'll see that it's really the same. Basically, it boils down to the same basic nakuda, the bittul of the ziyach, the bittul of the inner, what do you call it, the inner ziyach of the man, the inner nefesh ha'tiviyas, which later becomes the nefesh ha'bamiyas of the man. V'zeu vayas David aditeya aveda v'higia v'sur mirah davke. Also, beginners Kes Hashem Teiv. If a man nimta Kes Hashem Teiv, that's connected Davki with Hidurim in mitzvahs lo isaseh. Davki being, as they call it in Yiddish, opgehit, they call it guarded, well guarded in the inyan of mitzvahs lo isaseh Davki. Or in the inyan from the mitzvahs aseh be inyan tzedakah. Aber wenn wir das appellige Indien, das ist die Indien von Yas David Shein. Zehu, and this is another pasuk over there in Shmuel Beis, this is a much later pasuk. Zehu ve'ele divrei David ha'achreinim. This is right near the end of Shmuel Beis, where it's written that these are the final words of David HaMelech. But it's put down in Rashi, and in the Mephoshim, it doesn't mean the last things he said before his histalkus or whatever, but these are the last things that we're noting down, the nevuahs, and that's according to the Shitta, it's a well-known Indian as to whether David HaMelech was a Novi in the full sense or not. That's whether he's reckoned amongst the Nevi'im or reckoned amongst the Bali Ruch HaKodesh, all comes to Chakira B'zeh, in Divrei Razal, in Rishonim. Is of the Dort state in Rashi that Eile Divrei David ha'achreinim means certain nevuahs that David HaMelech. They state Dort the Lashon, and as they bring to Metzudas David and a couple other the Pashtoni HaMikra over there in Nach, what they say that the Eile Divrei David ha'achreinim, that's referring to certain nevuahs and certain statements that David HaMelech said. B'derech Nevuah, why they called Achreinim, because Li'achreim Mizeh, we don't find that he said anything more Mamish B'Yivim Kozeh. Well, that means it was his last words before he passed away or something like that. However, Eila Divrei David or Achreinim. So the Rebbe said, why do you have to mention that these are the last words of David? Just say, David HaMelech said this. Well, why do you need to say Eila Divrei David Achreinim B'Klal? What's the what you might call the profit in having used such an expression? So there was the Rebbe Shehu P'chinas Seif Ma'aseh Davke. That everything in the Nach is B'tachas Habiru. These are Divrei David ha'achreinim, meaning that the Ikea Inyan of David being Sfiras HaMalchus, Ikea Inyanim is achreinim. That his devorim, they go down into the lot, B'chinas Seif Ma'aseh Davke, B'yeridas B'chinas Malchus, that Malchus goes down from its state in Atzilas, all the way down with all its instructions and everything like we pointed out yesterday, into Bria Yetzirah V'Asiyah, the point being to make it possible, Levare Biruri Noiga. Not that Malchus actually does it, it's done al Yidei the Neshama. Malchus shows the way, V'chulu, Shezehu Davke HaMagir L'mayla B'yesa B'chinas Atzmas Ein Seif Mami. That's the pshat Eilu Divrei David ha'achreinim. Davke through David, what he's in from Malchus, and he came down into achreinim, into the madregas Haki Tachtoinas, or Davke Alidei, he reached the highest point. Even Maso Abeinim Hoyser Reish Pino. But Davke comes to the highest of all the madregas. What is it? The union of Meile b'yeser b'pchinas atmas ein seif man. Okamoi, like it's written, Okamoi shkosu, as it is written, another pasuk beneged to David HaMelech, Ad David higdil, until David grew very big. Shegiya Meile b'yeser. Now that expression, Ad David higdil, that's written in the famous Haftorah, when Shabbos comes out, Erev Rosh Chodesh. You know the famous Haftorah of Vayem Aleid Yehonasan, that David said, that Yehonasan said to David, do kach for kach. And that's always whenever Shabbos is Erev Rosh Chodesh, and we read that Haftorah, the whole story about how he didn't show up at the Suda, and Shaul got very brigus, and then he made a simon that if he went out into the field and he shot arrows, that would be a sign of what they're going to do is that David would realize from that he had to flee or he could come back, etc., etc. So he shot him the arrows in a way that he realized he had to flee, and then they farewelled, and they're going to do is. So it's written that that they embraced one the other, and then it's written Ad David higdil, until David, what it means literally, that David stood up and made himself ready to go. What it means, Ad David higdil, means in Pnimis HaInyonim, until David reached the height of his madrega. Higdil from Russian, grew up, literally went to the highest point. Therefore, it's written before that they shot arrows, that the Yonasan shot arrows, and David knew through this, etc., etc. So it's brought down in Siddur, a whole beer that the union from the arrows, that the union from Birulim. The shooting arrows and showing where they're going, that's like the union from Birulim. It's like taking a shot at the Dvarim Gashmi, but knowing how you're doing it, know where you're going. But the whole marshal of the union from arrows is indicative of Birulim. Davke Ali Dezeh, David HaMelech reaches his highest Bechina, and he was helped in that union by Yehoia's son, but that's Yud Kei Vov Nosson. But Yud Kei Vov, the union from the Sfiras Elyonis in the Shem Havaya, and Kei Achreina, that's the union from David HaMelech. Yud Kei Vov Nosson into the union of the Kei Achreina, this is David HaMelech. And Nosson in the Gematria Hei Meyos, but that's indicative of the Kei Achreina of the Shem Havaya. Well, that's the union of the Kei Achreina, how it is full of all of its Miluim. But that's the union from Meya, and that's how David higdil, Davke Ali Dezeh, David reaches his highest realization of his Shemus Bechina, was Mavur in Drush Chassidus. Benegel is there. Shegiya Meile b'yeser, David reached the highest of all of his madregas in Atzmas Ein. Ali Dezeh, Davke Yeh Amiti Yisagilui Teliyosid. Davke Ali Dezeh, through this whole union. Arevedas Birulim and the Sur Mira in the union for not being spoiled Mirel Mazeh. And Davke the union for Sur Mira in the union for Malchus and Kabbalah sales, we should see what Pashtet. That's the union of the Avedus HaEved. Davke, through that, we come to the Amitius HaGilui, the Aino, the Gilui of Atzmas Ein Seif. Lamata, but that's the union from Gilui Deliosi, the union from Gilui Melech HaMashiach, Lamata, the Teich HaElon. And that's Davke Alidei, the union from the Aveda from David Malchus. And therefore it's connected with the Gilui of David Malchus Mashiach, because he's like the realization of all those inyanim, how they are b'poel mamish, the Gilui in the Metzias of the world. The Rebbe Taina that we're already holding by that mamish, the Etzem Birulim Atzmo have been stayed, they've already completed themselves. And so what's in the union from Giluim of Birulim Achshor? So we pointed out on numerous occasions that Yesh Lema and the Biru Achshor, that's the union from going L'mayla Kolazman. In other words, that there's a Biru which is union from Shabbos. That's the Biru, it's going to be Liosid, the union from Shabbos, U'Menucha L'Chayei Lomim, that's the union from the Gilu de Liosid. was the Bira on Shabbos is the Bira von Atzilas. And that's what's called Bira Oichel Miteich Oichel. Nicht Oichel Miteich Pselos, nicht Pselos Miteich Eichel. Oichel Miteich Oichel. They can just go from one Madrege in higher Kedusha, Mi Madrege Lama. Madrege, and that's the union of the Birurim Berege Zeh. The whole union is just to go higher and higher. B'simcha v'tur levav, b'simcha gedela v'atzuma. But that's also the union from the simcha from Chosin v'chalad. This is the union. The simchas nisuyin v'shayach l'zeh. That's also got to do with the union from Tomchei Tmimim, because the union from the Tmimim, they have bridged on both of these inyanim. First of all, they finished off all the last trace of the Vedas HaBiruri Kipshutei. Now their union is to be Mavara, and to be Megala, the union from Amiti Sagila Deliosi. Omen Kain Yehi.
That's
Rotzain. Yesh Lema, this is a Pili Plois, Alei Adomes. It's a dollar bilti moving, a dollar sameya, or misameya. Alpha P was a dollar multi moving cloud. Was all the younger bochim, all the younger chevra. Sheloi ro, einehem lo ro. Gam lo yodu. They were teenagers. You take rechem imam v'oid lifneze. They were never even thought of. V'chule v'chule. Yeah, and Alpha became Davkidei, the koil rash godil. And the koil otzum. Davkidei going to the Rebbe. And Davkidei was in a machris, Yechia Melech HaMashiach, and Yechia Adinenu with the whole Arichas HaDvorim. We Eltera was the Armenian is to be Messiah by him. Was all him with Tetlam Abi Tmicha. We Yachadim Zeh Litzoich Yachadital. Yechia Melech HaMashiach. Und der Rike bepoel Mamish, we just saw here the Ocean Amiti Sagilu Italiasit. Amirchen Momen Kenny Watson. Take it from me out Mamish.